You know, it hasn't really occurred to me to review this phone properly, but it is quite an intriguing piece of Android-powered hardware. I have owned and been using this little pistol for the last 3 years or so. I am speaking, of course, about the Samsung Galaxy J5 2017 model, or what happens when you build a premium phone on a bargain basement budget. Before we get on any further, I should clarify that this is my work phone. And although I haven't relied on it 100%, it has been a faithful and dependable companion for all of its existence since I got it brand new. I shall try to take you through its strengths and weaknesses and hopefully come up with some sort of conclusion as to what this device represents and whether you should consider it as a bargain basement option in 2022. So let's get on with it. First, the good things, and I begin with build quality. Honestly, I'm impressed. Boy howdy how this thing provides. It's an all-metal unibody construction with an anodized feel to the matte paint finish. It has some quirky futuristic lines that double as antenna functions. Actually, I'm pretty sure that these are intended to be antennas mainly, but I still like the design. I think it's quite impressive, quite nerdy. Also, the anodized body is really a fingerprint magnet, so I have to keep doing this in order to keep the device attractive for the camera. Yeah, and the glass as well. Battery life is another plus here. Actually, it's quite stellar. In this day and age, when you feel privileged to get a full day of battery out of your flagship smartphone, this thing carries on for 3 or 4 days, no problem. And that's not all. Actual glass on the screen, honest to goodness glass, though it's an unspecified brand of protection level. I don't know if it's Corning, Gorilla or whatever. Actually, here's where you can start to see some of the cost-cutting measures compared to the premium devices. The bezels are thicker, not too much mind you, but enough to make some people uncomfortable. I don't mind the chin or this high brow here, but I'm more of an old school user, and I tend to adjust and to adapt new tech quite hard really, so this conservative look is not a problem to me. There is, however, this sort of sealant here between the screen and the body itself. I don't know if you can see it, but anyway, the way this thing is put together, the fit and finish, just doesn't scream 2022 or 2020 premium, though it would have been considered premium in 2010. Also, this cutout in the speaker grill is not chamfered, so if you run your finger over it, you might feel it a bit too edgy. It's not gonna cut you, but it's not gonna feel pleasant like the S8, for example, which has the grill integrated into the cutout. This just has well, it has a slot here where you can put your nail into, and which will inevitably gather lint. So yeah, but really you sort of expect these minor foibles. After all, this cost a fraction of the price that the S9 carried in 2017, I believe 35 to 40%, something like that. And the biggest surprise of it all, well, I didn't mention it, but go figure, it has an AMOLED screen, an honest-to-goodness AMOLED screen. And really, this should be consider the premium feature, especially in the 2017 lineup when bargain devices didn't really offer this. But now it's time to come to the bad stuff. It has a mediocre chipset, and I do mean mediocre. It's the Exynos 7870 model. Yeah, it's an octa-core, but really, so what? It never really felt like it had any of the performance marketed, and to make things worse, it's only paired with 2 gigs of RAM. Come to think of it, this laughable amount of RAM, it could be the reason behind the laggy response and so on. Let's make something clear. I'm no power user, and I hate how new smartphones seem to have more RAM than an equivalent run-of-the-mill PC. But even I can attest that 2 gigs of RAM even in 2017 is quite laughable. It just didn't cut it. The reason that I don't mind this is because I keep my work phone clutter-free and only with a handful of productive oriented apps like Teams, Skype Lite, Outlook, and stuff like that. I only need to be connected on the go, you know, when I respond to an email or things like that. But as soon as I start multitasking with this thing, it just does not want to play ball. It's laggy, jittery, and ends up freezing the app eventually. I had this happen to me several times when I open more than 2 apps, which actually require some resources to run in the background. Now, if we can go back a bit, you know how I praised the battery life in the beginning of this video. Here's the thing though, it does that because it lacks performance, and you tend to limit the multitasking in this phone since it's not able to cope with it. Therefore, 3000 milliamp hours seems plenty juicy, but if you throw some heavy apps at this phone, battery life ceases to be that impressive. It's still above today's average, but really, so what? It's not like you get anything groundbreaking from the J5 and you can say that, yeah, it's a great phone and it also has battery life. You have that huge battery life and really cannot do anything with it. As you see right now, the device software rates it as excellent, and still I feel sometimes it's laggy. So yeah, there's that. Things I don't really like about this thing: the micro USB port really doesn't help its case, as it's obsolete and impractical compared to the new Type-C standard. At least it still has a jack connector. Oh, Jack, how I miss thee. I yearn for thee. Anyway, moving on. The worst offender here, by far, in my opinion, is the camera. Honestly, it's at the same level of a cheap feature phone camera. Well, it's not really, but it sure feels like that. Switching between my old S8 and this J5's camera sure makes this one, it renders it unusable, really. Bad things with the camera: it doesn't autofocus properly, it's not stabilized. I know it has no OIS, but some sort of better software effort should have been made instead of an optical image stabilization. Let me just take a photo right now and I can show it to you. Let me get closer to the camera. Okay, so if you focus manually, you are able to get some good results, but you would need to hold the phone very still, and I do have these shaky sausage fingers sometimes, plus I'm not really patient. Photography is not my strong suit, and really this camera is junk for me. quite predictably, it doesn't handle low light shots all that well either. And it's a shame too, as I would like to use this phone to its full potential and take photos, afterwards sending them, Skyping them over to my workstation. You see, I work in a production facility and I would need several times a day to use this camera, but alas, it's really bad and I just end up using my S20, and then this thing only complicates things. By the way, imagine switching between this camera and this camera all day long, and you could see what I mean. I don't mean to rant on this device. I love its simple, robust construction that would have been interpreted as premium 10 years ago, when all but a few phones were plastic. And I will continue using it since I have found ways around its shortcomings. But could I recommend it in 2022? Not a chance. Not when the Galaxy A52s costs no more than 270 euros and offers so much more. Really, this J5, you can only pick it as a second-hand option for about 100 euros, and to make things worse, that one would also present some serious wear and tear to it. By the way, mine does not, because I have bought this simple yet reliable case for it, protection sleeve or whatever, so I just carry it like that all day. Also, the screen is protected, it goes above the bezel, so really it although I have dropped it a few times, it hasn't broken. But let's get on to our conclusion. So unless you are desperate for a cheap phone, or you happen to stumble upon one as a hand-me-down from a generous relative or friend, there's no real reason to consider the J5 as a smartphone option in 2022. Too bad it doesn't have that quirky cool factor either, to make this an oddball, campy, collectible thing in years to come. So I guess that's it for me. Thanks for watching, and as always, remember, I buy old, quirky, obsolete tech stuff so you don't have to. Bye bye.